steps, the vicar looked up, his eyes hollow and dark-ringed, devoid of hope.
"You came,"
he said. "Well, you asked nicely," she replied, not sure what else she could say. Kit had done the asking, but she'd seen the note the vicar had sent. The words desperate and no one else had indeed been used, and her brother had watched her read it in silence until she didn't have any bloody choice. She didn't want to be here. Temples were not her thing. The vicar of the 7 churches tried to pull himself together, this man 10 years younger than her and far from ready for the responsibility weighing him down. He dragged his cloak up around his thin shoulders and stood. Then he took a deep breath to steel himself and bowed to her.
"Mistress Cornelis, a happy solstice. May the last lights of the lost gods shine on you, and may—"
Lita shushed him. "That's really not necessary. Not for me." She had met some of the lost gods and remained distinctly unimpressed. Their blessings were not worth their weight in shit. Enin was the only one with half a brain left anyway. And even he. The stirring in the back of her mind told her that her little god was daring her to finish that thought. She muttered a curse back at him. The vicar carried on, stumbling over the end of the blessing anyway, though the words fell to an incomprehensible mumble, as if he couldn't believe she'd refused him and didn't quite know what to do about it. "Want to show me what happened?" Lita asked when he finally stopped. The burden of it crashed down on him again, his face taking on that bleakness she'd seen when she arrived. Shoulders hunching, he nodded miserably. Kit had asked her to come, Lita reminded herself. That was why she was here. More or less the only reason. She didn't have time for temples and their dramas, but she was still trying to build on the new trust between herself and her brother, and wouldn't do anything to jeopardize that. She was also meant to be stepping back and interfering less in his life, which did not come naturally to her. That seemed to lead to him interfering in hers instead, which didn't seem right. But as she had nowhere else to live since the house on Larch Lane burned down, and he had taken her in? Well, not quite true. Sylvian had offered. She could be living with him, in a palace, no less. Well, in the barracks or whatever, as trusted servants, or as much as a queen could ever trust a thief, Lita supposed. Ostensibly, she was meant to be working for Annika, although there was precious little to do in that regard, just keeping an eye on things in the city, on the nobles and the guildsmen, and any other people Annika was interested in. She didn't need to report in. Mostly she talked to Sylvian or one of the other bodyguards. But if she moved into the palace, under the Queen's thumb, at her beck and call, probably, like he was, day and night, Lita didn't want to think about that. If there was one thing Lita was sure of, it was her ability to fuck everything up when it came to Sylvian Chand. Same with Kit, if she wasn't careful. So, here she was, with a smile, almost, ready to help, within reason. She knew the city, knew its underworld. She presumed at first someone had knocked over the poor box, which, while being in bad taste, was common enough. She could probably find out who and have a quiet, stern word until it was returned. And while she was doing that, she was not thinking about Sylvian. Though Lita had lived most of her life in the shadow of this particular temple, she had never willingly stepped inside the place. Her mother, God's rest her, had been far too busy for temples, and besides, she had worshipped gods that didn't even have a place here. Not anymore. Or so she had said in Lita's hazy memories. When she and Kit were orphaned, they'd been offered that same charity. Food, old clothes, attempts made to find them shelter and a trade. That was basically what the temple did, then and now. One of the largest in the city, the temple was lodged here in the middle of the rookery, the poorest quarter of Amberez, like a bone stuck in the city's throat. It had no riches, no significant patrons, and struggled to get by. But still, men like the vicar tried to help those with even less. It left her torn as to whether the temple was actually any use to the city. She and Kit hadn't needed it. She had a trade, however illegal, and they had made their own shelter, the two of them, for good and ill. Even from the beginning she could steal far better food and clothes than the temple offered. There were always do-gooders haunting the shittier end of the city, looking for souls to save, or so they said. More often than not, they were after the vulnerable to fleece, or victims to exploit. What they gave away for free was often barely worth having, and what they asked in return, well.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.